heard some people say that the reason it did what it did was because of the lockup mechanism, right? Which is a fair point. But the other side to that is, I think with Pulse, you're gonna eventually over time see less sell pressure because more people are gonna get washed out, right? Quicker because there's no forced holding, right? So that, and then also if somebody is getting rid of a percentage of their bag, like if you're a Hexagon and you have a giant bag, right? You can scrape interest off, or you can even sell some of it off, and eventually in a year, 2 years, you'll get it back, right? But Pulse, once you sell it, you better hope that it comes back down enough to where you can, get it back, or it's gone forever. So I think that definitely in favor of Pulse as far as less sell pressure over time, and the fact that it's deflationary, not inflationary like Hex.
And can I just add to that? It also depends on how quickly user behavior will change with Pulse. We know that we saw user behavior changing with Hex. People incentivized to hold, setting goals, setting dates for the future for their stakes, receiving interest, and there's the penalties. It had a psychological impact. People started thinking long term, right? And then you have that effect that there's no avalanche sell-off. An avalanche where, there's a bear market and everyone wants to sell. But with Hex, people were locked. So you didn't have that kind of sell-off, even though it still dropped 80%. In terms of users, I think there weren't that many people selling because they couldn't. They were all locked up. Whereas with Pulse, if there's a bear market, like I still think Pulse can do 1,000x or whatever, but it's the time frame, because you'll still have that effect with all these new users. They're going to, will there be avalanche sell-offs? Will they all just panic sell if it goes down a bit? Because these they have their behavior is still, the same as if they're holding any other crypto for a lot of people that have come in, by the Hexagons. Yeah.
That's very true. That's very true. But there's one thing we're not thinking about. I mean, this is where I get excited, that we're building a way that we don't have to sell. We can use financial tools to their ultimum design. So imagine if you had Pulse, which appreciated, or Pulsex. Pulsex, you've got all these great farming tools and mechanics that the price alone can go up. But with Pulse, imagine if you had a chance to take advantage of the asset appreciation and then do what most rich people do, and that is extract value out of that asset increase through a collateralization, and then use that collateralized finance not to buy a Lambo, not to do degen, but to take those funds, put them back into Hex, buy long-term stakes, short-term stakes, generate passive income, and then use passive income to just live your daily life. And now you have this cycle, this wonderful cycle where you've got the perfect asset that's appreciating, you collateralize that, use the funds to buy in another product like Hex that has a perfect generation of passive income, and now you're getting a monthly or bi-weekly paycheck to live your life without destroying anything, without selling anything. Momentum that is just going to flood the market. We've got 8 months worth of potential onboarding that has been held or delayed because of crazy ETH fees. So we've had so many people who want to get in but can't or won't, or decided to delay because of the amount that they have to pay for this. And so what happens when Pulse Chain is released? You're going to have this mountain of new onboards that have decided, okay, now's our time to get in.
Absolutely.
I was going to say, Crypto Goose, when you were talking about collateralizing your gains, you're referring to third-party projects that have been coming out recently, or?
Yeah, we're not allowed to talk about those, so
yeah, I know, but
not talking about them. Just the idea, but without speaking about the projects.
Okay, and so the idea was to collateralize those gains and then use the funds to buy, you said, Hex, and stake them out. Was that correct?
Yeah, so instead of using the proceeds of your collateral to go buy a Lambo or whatever other toy you want, use it to generate more money. And what better instrument than to use that same money to buy Hex? And then when you buy Hex, you can place stakes, and with those stakes, you can place a ladder and do whatever kind of passive income stream you want. Now you're generating free money. And then with that free money, you can live off of.
Yeah, guys, I agree. I think that if you were to go with a safe collateralization rate, but you still want it, and you're playing the conservative side, and you've got this big bag that Goose was talking about earlier, and you just want to be able to not quite realize it, but still secure, you could set something aside and say, all right, we'll just leave that on the side. Don't necessarily even spend it. You could have it sit in a spot to where it's still working for you, but it's not in a volatile coin, something a lot more stable. But should you start seeing the market taking a downward turn, if it's in a very stable coin, you're able to go right back and buy your Pulse back, and you're good. You don't have to worry about being liquidated.